Tonight on Power Talk, we are featuring Dr. Gamaliel Hassan. He's the CEO of Stima Sacco. Dr. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening to you, and thank you for having me.
Let's talk about Stima Sacco and how you've contributed to the economic well-being of Kenyans. Over 170,000 members?
Yes, last year we closed at 177,000 members. This year we have surpassed that mark. We are at 188,000, so we've added around 11,000 members in the last 2 months or so. Stima Sacco is the second largest Sacco in Kenya, and in that regard is also the second largest Sacco in Africa. As you're aware, the cooperative movement in Kenya is the largest in Africa, and that's why in terms of asset base, we are considered the second largest Sacco in Africa. Our contribution is huge. Statistics indicate that we in the cooperative sector contribute up to almost 30% of the GDP cumulatively. And Stima Sacco does play its role in doing that as well. So our model is that we are a Sacco first. A Sacco means a saving and credit cooperative. So first and foremost, even before you talk about lending, about the lending model, before you talk about financing, you have to talk about the saving culture. So what we do inculcate in our membership is actually the savings culture.
And that's an important one. I think the Sacco has played that role for a long time in this country, in the history of this country when it comes to savings. So let's talk about the regulations around Saccos. What sort of guidelines do you follow?
So there are two main regulations. One, we have the Sacco Societies Act, and number two, we have the Cooperative Societies Act. The Cooperative Societies Act is call it the Mother Act, is where all Saccos and cooperatives are registered. But over and above that, we are what is called a DT Sacco. That's a deposit-taking Sacco. So we are regulated by SASRA. SASRA is the Sacco Societies Regulatory Authority. The better way to look at this is similarly, just like the banks have CBK that supervise them, we do have a regulator by the name of SASRA. So we are 179 deposit-taking Saccos in Kenya under SASRA. And similarly, as of the year 2021, there were an additional 186 non-withdrawable deposit-taking Saccos that were added into that particular list. So those are the two main regulations that do govern the Sacco sector. But over and above that, there are other regulations as well, because we do a lot of business, so things like the Income Tax Act will come in and play a very key role in terms of what we do, and any other regulations and act that governs how businesses are to be run in the country will also play a role in terms of how we are governed.
How would you compare Saccos with banks when it comes to lending? Because you're a deposit-taking Sacco, but you're also providing financing for people that need it. How would you compare Saccos versus banks, at least from the experience of your members?
That's an interesting question and a very good one at that. First and foremost, Stima Sacco by asset base we closed at 53.8 billion shillings last year. As of end of February, I've seen the figure is 56 billion. We aim to close at about 63 billion by the end of the year. Now, if you're to look at the figure 55 billion, that tells you that we are larger than most of the banks in Kenya. There are 43 of them, but Stima is larger than most of them. We do provide services that are Sacco traditional, the guarantorship kind of model, the savings, then you borrow a multiplier. You'd be surprised I do have a loan product that you can borrow up to 10 times what you've actually saved. But apart from that, we do offer the traditional, for lack of a better word, the banking business, which is in our terms what we call the FOSA business. So in terms of whether you want to transfer money from your account, you hold a current account just like you'll hold in a bank. You'd have a savings account just like you'd have on the other side. You'd have an ATM, in our instance, that we're able to provide you a Visa-branded ATM. You can go anywhere in the world and insert that in any ATM and get your money out. So we do provide similar services, but over and above that, we do provide what is called the traditional model of Sacco banking. So the guarantorship vis-a-vis what is the conventional banking, which is collateral-based or title-based, we're able to do that as well. Yeah.
There's a question here on Twitter from CPA Nganga David, who says, majority of Kenyans need to understand how dividends are arrived at. Can you also speak on share capital as well as deposits?
All right, the best way to explain this is maybe to explain it from the perspective of Stima Sacco.
Yeah.
So if you join, number one, I have no customers. we only have members. And that's a very key distinction between a SACCO and any other financial institution, including a bank. So the first thing is that you must have ownership into the SACCO that you are joined. So in Stima, the share capital is 500 bob. And once you pay the 500 bob, you'd be asked to pay a registration fee and probably put some money into a savings account. So let's say with about 2,500 bob, you become a member of the SACCO. So from this share capital, I have individuals who have put in as much as 14 million shillings in share capital. And what we do is give you a return at the end of the year, which is what he's alluding to by the name of dividends. On the deposit, which is the savings, now I have members who have put in as much as 35 million shillings in savings. And the return we gave that last year was about 11%. So when you look at our model is very simple. We are very good at collecting money from our members. Once we collect that money, in terms of deposit and savings, is what we utilize to carry on our business. So SACCOs are what I'll consider to be retail end of the spectrum. So we lend to everyone else from the bottom of or rather the base of the pyramid, all the way to the top of the pyramid. So we're very good at utilizing your money to generate money. And from that, now we have to have a discussion because you're an owner, remember, not a customer. So from the profits you've generated at the end of the year, then we need to give you something back. So as a key example, it would be the dividends which are paid on the share capital, and similarly the interest rebate that is actually paid on the deposit. So for me, I tend to think that is one of the key distinctions between our financial model and any other financial model outside there. Yeah.
And you recently announced a dividend payout of 396 million or thereabouts. But then, Dr. Hassan, there was an issue. People couldn't access their money, and there was people even online who were saying, hey, we're coming here for our dividends. What's the problem? We can't access our funds. What happened?
So two things. The payout we made was 3.6 billion Kenya shillings. The 393 million is only on the share capital.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, we also have members who put money in terms of deposits. So on the share capital, we gave a return of 15%, translating to the 393M. But over and above that, we also had more than almost 3.2 billion shillings that was paid out in terms of the interest rebate. So our total payout was 3.6 billion bob, which I believe is the highest in Kenya in terms of that cumulatively. And we have undergone a system change at the beginning of the year, around January 17th. And maybe it's a good place to start so that I can answer your question.
Okay.
And we have been using a similar or the same system for the last 16 years, from the year 2006 to date. In the year 2006, I had 10 employees. I had a revenue return of less than 300 million. Today, we are doing 7.4 billion of revenue. I have more than 300 employees. We had no branches. Today, we have 9 branches. We're adding 3 more, one in Kisii, one in Meru, another one within CBD. And our business model has changed. Like I've mentioned, we now carry out FOSA business, which is actually banking business. And because of that, we had to make a change and to say, okay, for 49 years that we've been in existence, because Stima Sacco has been there from 1974, these are the kind of system we've used to date. But our model has changed. As I've said, we are competing not just with the banking sector, but also with the fintech. And they have so-called, I'd say, a superior technology than what we have. So with that reason and with a lot of wisdom and because of the feedback we got from our members, we decided to do a system change and go to a proper core banking system, a more versatile system that can be able to give more to our membership. So that's what we did. So the only thing that we did that in hindsight that perhaps we could have reviewed was the timing of the changeover, because the timing also coincided with the dividend payout. So particularly on that particular day, the mobile platform, which is provided by a third party, did not function momentarily. And that's where the problem is, because you have about 100,000 of our members who purely access us through the mobile platform and do not want even to visit our bank. They say, no, I am more comfortable dealing with you from a tablet or from a phone. But that was sorted out, and I can assure you that each and every of our members, the 180,000 of them, got their dividend payout of 3.6 billion. They managed to access it. You could have seen queues within our banking halls. That is normally normal for us in the SACCO sector. Every dividend payout is like a Super Bowl moment. It's like a World Cup within our industry. So a lot of our members do come out just to visit us and able to come to the branches physically to be able to get access to their funds. And of course, this was increased by the fact that our mobile platform was momentarily down for that period.
Okay, so you were able to handle customer queries on the same?
Oh, definitely,
and
because
resolve them?
We do have many other channels. We have an agency banking channel. We have more than 57 agents across the country. Like I've mentioned, we have 12 branches in total. Over and above that, we have area service center and service points, including in Naivasha, in Lamu, all the way to Olkaria. So we had very many other avenues that our members were able to gain access.
Thank you for that. I just want to give you a minute or two to give us, your rallying call, saving in the country. That's a big thing. I think there's lots of encouragement to do more of that. What's the best way to do that? Just your moment to give us some advice now.
SACCOs have come of age. If you're to look at majority, let's say the top 5 SACCOs in Kenya are actually as large as Stima Sacco is. One of the key things that we're looking forward to is access to the national payment system. It's a very important point to us because although I've mentioned we offer all these services to our members, we have to access this through our brothers and sisters in the banking, in the banking industry. Now, if you're to go to very developed countries, the US and in Canada, the largest credit union, that's what they call SACCOs there, is, I'll surprise you, is actually I checked it yesterday, is actually 20 trillion shillings in asset base. That is almost 20 times the biggest bank in Kenya. Similarly, you go to Van City, the largest SACCO there is about 5 trillion Kenya shillings, about 5 times the size of the largest bank in Kenya. So we think that we require the access to the national payment system so that we can actually be able to offer even more to our membership. What we have all done to date, we have done it through a very regulated industry and through an industry that sort of keeps us away from that access of the national payment system. So I'm bringing this up because, just to answer your question, I'm looking at it from the perspective that as a SACCO sector, like I've mentioned, we do 30% of the gross domestic product of the country. And I think that with that access, you can actually do even more. And there are discussions around that. For example, I know there's a bill within Parliament that is going to go to the Senate that is going to have a discussion on that. So we're looking forward to that. We are hoping that the government of the day would be able to push this through, and of course, the Parliament in totality would be able to accept that and also accept the fact that SACCOs have indeed come of age. So my main advice to anyone joining a SACCO is that the world that is coming ahead of us, Stima is 49 years of age. I'm looking at where we'll be at 50 years. I'd even tell you 5 years from now is going to be a game changer, especially if this bill was to pass and these regulations are to pass. What you see us providing will exponentially grow. And therefore, my rallying call to any person outside there is that if you're not a member of a SACCO, please join one. Ideally, join a regulated SACCO. That's very important because you want to make sure your money is safe. Ensure that you get a place whereby your savings, you can see them grow. That's why you give a return back to a membership, very critical. But also importantly, get a SACCO that can also be able to provide you the services that you require. So all those services, a one-stop shop, a one-stop financial shop, regardless of whatever you need, you should be able to get in a SACCO. And I do believe that SACCO is Stima Sacco.
Thank you, Dr. Gamaliel Hassan, the CEO of Stima Sacco. We thank you for your time on Power Talk.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me.